Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome back to Into the Westworld. This is our Westworld recap and review show. We break down the latest episodes of HBO's hit series. You guessed it, Westworld. I am your host, as always, Griffin Schiller. And today we were actually supposed to have a full panel of people, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we weren't able to record last night. And so it's going to be myself and my lovely guest, Miss Sharronda Williams. Sharronda, how are you doing?
Hi.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome back to Into the Westworld.
This
sounds like me. I was like getting a little bit of feedback here. I'm like, what episodes of HBO's hit series? Guessed it. That's on yours. That's on your end. You're like, you got your speakers open, so it's like you're going through. We're supposed to have a full panel of people, but due to some, I was like so confused. I was like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm hearing myself, but I'm not talking. This is so bizarre.
Okay, I was really scared for a moment, so I apologize, guys.
No, that's okay. But how are you doing on this? This is May the 4th. Happy
May
Star Wars Day.
Be with you. So excited. It is Star Wars Day. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
It's Star Wars Day.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're talking Westworld. So it feels a little weird, right? Yeah.
It does.
You know, well, we got to get it's okay. We just got to get it out of the way, basically. So in case you all, well, not in case you all probably know this. Last night was the season 3 finale of Westworld. They only did 8 episodes this season instead of 10. I think it hurt them a little bit in the long run, but we're here. Sadly, we have to say goodbye to Westworld for another. I guess it's 2 years until season 4 is coming back. Is that usually what happens?
The bare minimum, but production is halted on everything, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna well, at least. Well, go ahead.
That was probably the hint that they were giving us when Bernard was covered in dust. That's maybe on this next season.
Yeah, for sure. The memes were the funniest thing to come out of the episode. Just like that Bernard gif.
Where is Tubbs?
Yeah,
where is Tubbs?
He's chilling. He's chilling in the hot tub, the bathtub.
It's a hot tub now. All the ice melted.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So all the ice is melted. Stubbs is chilling in what is now a hot tub. And we are going to discuss the season 3 finale. Guys, we are doing this live, so it's a little more casual, a little less formal. And if you are watching and you have any questions or anything you want us to talk about the season 3 finale or just Westworld season 3 in general, feel free to sound off in the chat there, and we'll try and get to your questions. But we're basically going to be going through this episode, breaking it down by characters as we usually do. And then from there, it usually just kind of turns into a conversation. There was a lot that happened this episode. It was about like an hour and 20 minutes. So we have a lot of ground to cover. Was it? Yeah, it was an hour and 20 minutes. It was.
Yeah, but did a lot really actually happen?
Well, that's up to you to decide. I'll leave that to you. But let's get into this thing first of all. Sharronda, what were your overall impressions of the finale? And when it was all said and done, were you happy with where season 3? Were you happy with the arc of season 3 and where it left off for season 4?
If we are going pre-post credits, no. Post credits included, yes. I feel as though it was so much that was discussed. It was so much buildup as to what was actually going to happen when we got to this season 3 finale, and it didn't really. It felt anticlimactic watching. It was just like, this didn't feel like a finale to me. This felt like episode 7, maybe. And the final episode of the season.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from, because I think you and I were just kind of briefly talking about it. We share a lot of the same opinions about the episode. I think it felt like a finale, but it was like the stuff that happened and the revelations that sort of, happened and all the information that came to light and like where the season went. I agree. It did feel a little anticlimactic. And I think it was mainly because a lot of the plot threads and the character arcs felt rushed, which is why I think actually that they needed 2 extra episodes, which is crazy because I think and even you were telling me this when you were watching the episode, there's a good chunk of this episode that just feels like they're just treading water, like it's not really going anywhere, like the riot stuff. Like, yeah, it's cool to see Marshawn Lynch again and Ash and whatnot, but like what does it really do? I mean, we already have a good sense of the world and the fact that it's in chaos. So like, I don't know. It felt like some of this was just kind of like tying up loose ends from last week's episode, and then just like they were trying to buy time until like shit hits the fan at the end of this episode, you know?
But I think I find it so interesting when you said that they were trying to tie up, they were trying to show like this riot, because my biggest complaint of the season has been they really didn't do that much to show the world building of what Los Angeles is right now. Where Philip and Ash, and I don't know how they've never managed to say Marshawn Lynch's character's name again. The entire season.
I know. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for someone to say it, and no one ever said it again.
Ash, and I'm just like, okay, we're never meant to know his name.
Yeah.
But interesting to spend so much time showing what the world looks like now with the information of Insight being released, when we never really got to see what it was before to really understand where we are now as far as this riot is taking place. And that's why for me, I was like, I truly don't care. Like, I'm not evil, but I don't care what happens to these people right now. Can we just go to someone else? And even with Bernard, every time Bernard popped back on screen, I was like, oh, I totally forgot Bernard was in this episode.
Exactly. Like, and well, that's just Bernard as a whole for this season. He really became an afterthought, and he was just sitting in limbo until this episode where like stuff happened with him that was really powerful, really important, and great, like isolated moments, but in the larger context just felt very random and misplaced, you know?
Especially in this episode. And I think that it's weird because Bernard, they keep saying Bernard is his key. He is the key. The key to what? Because he is not the episode.
Yeah.
They give us like, I call him kick-ass Bernard. They give us that in the beginning. I'm like, okay, like they're gonna give us what I've been wanting to see this entire time. And then it's almost like we should have known what was coming with Dolores. When they spend so much time on another character, it almost hints to the fact that you're going to have to depart from them sooner or later. And so I don't know. I felt like this should have been a Bernard heavy episode.
Right. But at the same time, it also couldn't have been, because it's the finale and they have to wrap up everything that's going on with Dolores. I think they could have better
stuff with Bernard.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like they saved, you're right, it was like a Dolores heavy episode, and then it was also a Bernard heavy episode, and I think had they sprinkled some more of Bernard's arc throughout the season and like made him like actually important throughout the season, it would have felt better here, you know?
Instead of telling us every episode, they tell us Bernard is important, he's a key, but we still do not see like how he can really be integral to the story.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start going through this episode. Like I said, we break it down by characters and arcs, and they all basically intersect at some point in time during this episode. So it really just becomes just going through the main talking points. But we'll start with Caleb and Dolores. So basically, where we picked off from last week's episode, Dolores and Maeve, I guess, were killed in the destruction of Solomon. And so, sorry, Caleb. Sorry, did I say Caleb?
No, you said Dolores, okay. Or maybe I just.
I thought I said Caleb for some reason. I'm going to Caleb because Caleb took Dolores's pearl out of her head in order to place it in what we find out is a new body. So basically, Sirach's men come up. They're looking for Dolores's pearl. It's not there. Maeve is still there. So they take Maeve. They reboot her and whatnot. And then we get to basically Caleb going around, and then he finds the chamber in which this like other Dolores body was being held, and Dolores basically tells Caleb about Park 5 in Delos and was like, oh, you were there doing target practice on hosts, and that's where you first met us. You met hosts there before, and like while all the other soldiers wanted to take, like, you know, be like they were in the park and be like the rich people and like take advantage of like the hosts and whatnot, Caleb kind of was resistant to that. but then she like also kind of like calls into his question. She calls into question his motivation for helping her, because she's like, okay, well, if I looked like anyone else, if I wasn't like blonde, good looking, and a woman and in danger, would you have helped me? And then Caleb's sort of like, what are you getting at with this? And then Dolores is like, look, we were both just using each other as a means for an end. And that's really what this was. So yeah, Sharronda, what did you kind of make of the beginning of Caleb and Dolores' arc in this episode? And like how, and especially how like Dolores was saying how, humanity is far more like AIs than they realize. Maybe AIs have more humanity in them than people realize.
Well, I like the overarching theme of how when Dolores says that, I saw the beauty in everything, and then I realized that was a lie. And really, this episode is about Dolores having to come to terms with her choosing a side, and also choosing to see the good in humanity, because the whole time she felt as though humanity was lost, or that's what we thought she felt. But see the back and forth between Caleb, it was weird at first because I was like, when were you guys beefing?
Yeah, I know. It was, yeah.
Did I miss something in last week's episode? Because I didn't know they were upset. I was just like, why do you have her chained up? And why do you think these chains are about to hold anybody, especially like a robot right now? So I was actually taken off guard with the entire interaction between Dolores and Caleb. I just thought it was weird. It didn't make sense to me from where we left off in last week's episode. Or maybe it's just her finally, she always sees the bad in what humanity can do. So for her, even though she has helped Caleb this entire time, he could have still just chose not to bring her back. So
right, yeah, I guess. I mean, that's the thing. She even says that she's like, I wasn't sure if you were going to bring me back or not, but it was like she kind of knew, because she knew the kind of person that he was, which we find out later in the episode. All of this was because she saw the good in him, not the bad. He made a positive choice, a good, morally straight choice. So this interaction was a little weird, definitely, because it felt like, Caleb was like frustrated with her for like making him bring her back, but like he did it out of his own free will. And I mean, she even has that line in there. She's like, free will's not like impossible. It's just like really fucking hard or whatever. And so, yeah, I don't know. It was just like you're right. It did seem like they were like irritated with each other, which given where we left off last episode, just doesn't feel right. But I don't know. I mean, it's just,
I guess we could talk about, I guess we could fully talk about Caleb and Dolores' relationship in the episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you find it weird that we would choose the season finale of season 3 to introduce that there was this whole other Westworld for training for soldiers?
I don't know. That makes sense to me, because it was the right decision to introduce it through the lens of Caleb, because that's a person that's someone we can get connected with, and someone that like we can get a firsthand experience of it with. And then also, like, it doesn't surprise me that was something that was done, like that you have these like you have these disposable AIs, and like if you can use them instead of killing real people, and like training and like giving them like real whatever like experience, then like that makes sense to me. But I don't know, and like especially given how long the park's been around and how long Dolores has been around in the park, like she's the original host. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed like a weird, it totally makes sense. I just didn't understand why they wouldn't have possibly introduced that, especially with the episode we find out probably in last week's episode.
Yeah, that I agree with that. That does feel like
better.
Yeah, it does feel like it was better integrated last week.
That whole interaction between them, or that conversation between them, that should have happened in last week's episode.
Yeah, I completely agree. That was like a dangling thread that I was kind of like, well, we could have finished that. I mean, I understand why they waited until
Right.
now because it does kind of reveal Dolores's overall plan and the fact that like, oh wait, she actually sees the good in people and is going to sacrifice herself so that everyone else has a better chance at living and surviving. Which is totally not what we thought her plan was going into this episode. So I understand like sparsing that little piece of information, but like you're right, this part was probably better suited in last week's episode. But kind of moving on from there, basically, from there, Dolores is just trying to get Caleb to Rehoboam. And they come in contact with like some reinforcements, some insurgents who are being controlled by Hale. And essentially she has gone like full rogue. She is turned completely bloodthirsty and has taken sort of like the villainous side of Dolores and like really just kind of like let that run wild. And she's not necessarily like blaming Dolores for everything that happened, but like she is in a way, and like she refers to Hale's family as weaknesses, and they were weaknesses that needed to be removed from her so that she could like fulfill her purpose, and basically she's lost all humanity. So I want to get your take on this and kind of like how they used Hale throughout the course of this episode, not the post-credit scenes, but like the proper episode, and then especially like this first interaction.
So with Hale's character, I find it interesting because I know she's supposed to be the villain because she's trying to destroy Dolores' plans, but to me, I don't see her as a villain because we seen this coming. We knew something was happening. You know, Charlotte or Harlot. What is there? Is it
Dolores? I think is what.
Dolores. Yeah. So why did I call her a harlot? Okay.
Harlot. I don't know.
It's Monday. I'm sorry.
It's Monday.
For Dolores, you know, she was going through this change and how she was having all these emotions because not only does she have Charlotte in her, she has Dolores in her, but I feel like she's this own separate entity. And I like how when we talk about this discussion of free will, I think that Charlotte or Dolores was actually choosing her own free will, and that
I agree.
Remove both Charlotte, which was making her weak, and Dolores, which was controlling her. She had to get rid of both of them to really evolve and become who she is meant to be, and to have her own plan that she wants to actually, have take place. And so I really like that addition. And I also do like how, for once, I think this is like one of the one times outside of maybe with Teddy that we see Dolores actually understand like wrongs that she has done.
Yeah, you definitely. Yes, there was like a look. There was a look that like she had. There was like she did not account for this. She felt so vulnerable. And actually,
a moment where I knew I screwed up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she was like, "Wow, I just made another enemy. Not that it's going to cost me, but it's going to cost everyone else that I'm trying to, help save." Yeah, no, I really, really like that. It was such a brief moment, but it was super effective.
Yeah. But I mean, even with the fact that she was like, you knew that I was going to die, and you did not care about me, because her whole thing is she cares about the host and she wants to protect her own kind, but you sacrifice your own kind to really win, like with your plan at the end of the day. So I like this is kind of like her atonement for, leaving Dolores to just die off on her own. She knew exactly what would happen to her.
Exactly. So yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you already brought it up, but that line where she's like, "You'd always." You said you'd always be there to help me, but you weren't. And like that's like the little bit in there where it's like, okay, so it's a little bit filled with revenge, but then also it's like you're removing all of the shackles so that it's like you're just gonna go out and do whatever. And I'm not sure whether Hale is gonna be the villain next season. I think it's a little difficult to paint her specifically as the villain, and I'm not sure if I like it. just because of like what they did with her this season. I really loved how they like developed the character. And highlighted like the struggles she went through. And so when we get to this episode, while I understand why she's making these decisions, I guess it was a little frustrating. But I don't know. I can't say I'm surprised. It is one of those things that's like
evolved. She's just an evolved person, and I think that she knows that she doesn't want to go back to where she was because she saw the weakness in that. I mean, it's even when he asked her, like, I thought you guys could fix yourselves. And she was like, I wanted to remind myself how you people truly are. Like, so I never get distracted again from what I'm trying to do. Because her husband and her son became distractions because she formed actual emotions and feelings and attachments to them.
Right. Well, and I guess in a weird way, it is sort of like a very in-depth, personal, and emotional look at like the creation of a villain, per se. So, like, when you look at it like that, you're right. It does make sense why she is the way she is. But I guess I was just hoping for something different for her. But that's
how I felt the whole season. I said, no, I understand you feeling that way. That's how I felt the whole season.
Oh, yeah. You're hoping for a different outcome. Yeah, no, for sure. So after that sort of interaction with Hale, and we also touched on the interaction that happens a little bit later on in the episode, but we get to Maeve v. Dolores part 2, which was to be expected. It was heavily teased, and it was good. It was a good little fight. It didn't last very long. I don't think it was going to last long, and we knew that the ultimate battle between these two was going to be a philosophical one, a battle in the mind, which we get later on in the episode. And I think the thing I love about this is like Maeve's line where she says, "If you want me to trust you, let me inside your mind, or I can force my way in." And that's literally how she's able to come to trust Dolores and understand what she's doing. It just takes a little while to get there. So yeah, we get this little entanglement. Obviously, Hale interferes and like freezes Dolores, and that's how Maeve ends up bringing her to Serac. What I will say though, when it comes to Maeve, I understood it at first, but I've been really hesitant about how they've treated her this season. It just, and I said this last week, but she was wasted, but then it also just doesn't feel like the Maeve that I know. Like, I understand, like, she is so attached to her daughter, and that is like the thing that drives her. But at a certain point, she's like just giving up like other things and like letting other people control her, which is something that she would never do. Like, she was always ahead of the curve. She always had a way out. She always had a plan. And in this, she is really a victim to her love of her daughter. And I'm happy they resolved that at the end of the episode, but it's just like how long it took to get there, and like how it basically took Dolores like beating her over the head and saying, "Hey, choose a side. You cannot be like, you can choose to be with these people, or you can choose to be with us and like see the beauty in things, but like don't make your own decision. Don't be a prisoner to whatever it is Serac's doing." And so it's like the fact that it took the entire season to get that through her head just didn't feel like Maeve to me, But anyways, I don't know. What did you think of this first little entanglement between Maeve and Dolores?
I want to say one of my biggest disappointments of this season has been the fact that Maeve has gotten her ass beat every single time she has fought Dolores.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, no, Maeve won last episode. Maeve did not win. If she did not have her little helicopter sniper gun, she would have got her ass beat again. So I was just very disappointed from the interactions, just from a fight, just the fights between Dolores and Maeve. I have been very let down. However, she redeemed herself in the scene later in the episode when she's fighting in the dark.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, with the gun flashes. Yeah,
that's the Maeve that I know.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think that they let this whole thing go on between Maeve and Dolores a little bit too long, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that if they would have had the philosophical question or philosophical conversation that they had in tonight's episode. I think they should have had that in a previous episode and then came back to the final conclusion that they had in tonight. Because I think that for Maeve, it's not like Maeve to only take Sirach's word as gospel and not try to Dolores and figure out what she's trying to do at the same time. Because she knows Dolores isn't crazy. She knows she's not dumb. She knows that if Dolores is doing it, she's doing it for a reason. So I just felt like there should have been a bigger counter like beforehand. And I guess to them, it was when she was talking to the Westworld Dolores. I don't know. Maybe they thought that would have satisfied us, but I don't feel like the types of questions that she were asking or the type of discussion that they had, that was more from a strategic standpoint and not just literally trying to understand what is your purpose behind all of this. So I just felt like that also felt anticlimactic, and maybe because we saw the fight last week, that's why I just really didn't have that much interest in this one. It was more interesting seeing Charlotte, Dolores, come in and interrupt the fight to let her know, like, hey, I'm not done with you. So
right.
You're going to lose this battle because I control you now.
Yeah, that is a good point. I almost feel like had they taken the budget for the fight from last week and incorporated it into the fight for this week and made the fight a little bit longer, a little bit more epic, but still do everything that they needed to do, that probably would have been better. Because you're right. They basically were like, okay, here's the fight, but it's not like we're also going to have them fight a little bit here. And so it doesn't have the same impact that I think it would have had it just been like one big epic fight. I would have loved to have seen that. But I totally agree with you when it comes to Maeve this season. Like you're right. It just didn't feel right. And like, while I like I like what they did with it in the end, like when like it came full circle and like she came back to her old self, I find it hard to believe that Maeve would ever like stray that far from, fighting to be her own person. Like I really struggle with, her being a victim to Sirach. And I understand he has a kill switch on her, or not a kill switch, but a freeze switch on her. But like she's smart than that.
At the end of that episode, you know how to get rid of the switch.
Yeah, it was basically, wasn't it that like Caleb uploaded like Dolores's consciousness into Rehoboam and like that knocked the whole thing down.
But only Caleb could control it. Caleb had known at that time that Maeve was on the side like that. So that's why I was really confused as to, okay, so now all of a sudden she just figured out how to stop the kill switch. Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that where it was just like tiny little revelations that's just like, well, why did this not happen like earlier? Like the big one for me, and I guess this is sort of like the next thing, is Sirach. Like we find out that Rehoboam is literally in his ear telling him what to do, which I think it's a nice like it makes sense for the character. Like the character obviously is, to a fault, is going to listen to this AI because it's what he believes in. But like, if I felt like something like the placement of it, the fact that we are just now learning about it in the last episode, it felt really odd.
And I think it's the character.
Yeah,
it cheapened who Sirach was. Like
it does cheapen it. Yeah.
It's like, this is who we were afraid of the whole time. Like this is the person that was going to literally like control the world. No.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It was and it's just like, why didn't Maeve figure that out sooner? And I think I can't remember whether it was you or my other friend I was talking to, but I think you brought up the fact that every encounter that he had with her was through like a hologram, basically. So it was like he was kind of shielding himself from being, discovered for who he really was, which I actually think it is a cool little character thing. Like, and it makes sense. Like he's never going to reveal his true self because his true self is just like the machine telling him what to do. And so like it is pathetic. Yeah.
But I guess for me, wouldn't Rehoboam have to have told him what was going to happen? Like he wouldn't have been like, hey, they're like tricking you right now. What is happening? Because Rehoboam was like, Sirach serves him. So did Rehoboam feel like it was in its best interest to now serve Caleb?
Well, I think it was because when Dolores uploaded her conscious
Yeah.
into Rehoboam, the program that Caleb had was also in Dolores. And so when it uploaded it into there, it only listened to Caleb because Caleb's the person who is like leading them now.
But Rehoboam can see any outcome. So
It can't,
Rehoboam.
like, I agree with you. This is
So
where it gets like really dicey because it's like, well, if this program can see literally everything, why couldn't it see this coming? Why couldn't it see this coming? Is it just because that they're so unpredictable that they can't, like, I guess for Caleb, it couldn't see what he was going to do because he's an outlier and they
yeah,
can't account for outliers. And I guess when it comes to the hosts, they're not people, so it can't account for them. So I guess that would be the explanation, at least for me. But I agree, it does get a little confusing.
yeah. I thought I got a little muddy there. I was like, this doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that they're like shoving everything into the last episode, you
And
know.
everything's happening so quickly, so you don't even have time to really apply logic to what you're actually watching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, basically from there, from that like Maeve and Dolores fight, where Dolores obviously goes and she's like hooked up to the machine, and Sirach is like trying to wipe her memory in order to find the, hold up, what is it? It's the key of the key to Sublime, key to the Sublime, I guess is what it's called. I heard it mentioned once. What'd you say?
And I was like, I thought this was called the Forge. Now it's the key to Sublime.
Well, I don't know if it is the key to the Forge. I keep getting confused with like these. Is this the key to the Forge, or is it the key to unlock something else? Like, I don't. There's so many like random terms or whatever. But I know Bernard called it the key to the Sublime.
Sublime, and that's why I was like, I thought it was the Forge though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Anyways, but
ignore it. It is.
Yeah. It's yeah. Anyways, but so yeah, so Sirach is trying to find the location of the key, or find the key because he believes it to be in Dolores's head because she tricked everyone into thinking that it's in her head. So while that's going on, Caleb is being escorted through these riots in the city on his way to Insights, and this is where we find out, this is the first time we hear the government mentioned at all. We hear like one of these guys say the president ordered a military response to the riots that are going on.
I was like, what president?
Yeah, I know. It's like, there's a government.
Because we never did world building of like, this goes back to, they never told us like what this world is, what it looks like. So it's like, for you to bring all this up now, just like, it doesn't matter. It's a finale.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, I agree with you. It's really interesting because I thought they did excellent world building in the first episode, but it was for such an isolated area. Like, I got a good sense of like the way the world works in Los Angeles.
You know how
and from my understanding,
Los Angeles.
Yeah, and then I guess from my understanding, the riots were only taking place in Los Angeles. Like, the rest of the world was fine because in the post-credit scene here, when William is going into this Delos facility or whatever,
like they were just chilling.
They were fine. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think there are some elements where they do a really good job of explaining the landscape of the world and what's going on, but then there are other times where it's like, what is this affecting the whole world? I thought that's what was going on, or is it just affecting this like isolated area? And so it gets really muddy in that regard, you know.
Yeah, this is why I'm always constantly confused, because I'm just like, where are we right now? What is happening? You know, I just, and I think it would be better if they did show other parts of the world, especially since Sirach talks about how Paris was destroyed. You know, we get all these glimpses into other parts of the world. However, we always lead back to LA. And so I just don't understand why they chose not to tell us anything. Because now it just seems weird. Like, so is it LA? Are there other places? Like, is this happening everywhere else? I'm confused now.
Right. And I mean, like when Dolores like showed everyone their future and was like, hey, this is what the system is telling you about yourself. Feel free to change it. When she started the revolution, it was supposedly all over the world. And so I don't know. I guess that's where I just got a little confused. It's like, well, why is LA the one area that it's like there are riots? I thought these riots were supposed to happen across the world. So, but
Right.
anyways, so he goes through the riots. Like, Marshawn Lynch shows up and he has a couple like really cool moments. I love that he was the crowd control and just like burst through like the barriers or whatever.
Can they just make his t-shirt? Because I will buy it. Can we?
They did have the t-shirt. Actually, did you go to the Westworld panel at Comic-Con last year? Because they were giving out those shirts for free.
Where? I got my bag. It wasn't in there.
It wasn't. They gave it. That's how I got my. I have that shirt like somewhere, but yeah, yeah.
I never got that shirt.
Yeah,
I had the bag because it had like the poster and stuff in it.
Yeah,
now.
I don't know. They were giving out shirts, but yeah. So he goes there. Here's the one thing that also kind of irritated me. So it's like we get a little bit of his relationship with Ash, but like not a lot. So it's another those are other two characters that I really would have liked to have seen more of, because they felt like they just kind of like came and went, and they kind of explored Ash.
Characters that pop in and pop out to help the plot move along, but we know nothing about these characters.
Exactly. And so then we get to this moment where like Marshawn Lynch's character is shot and Ash is like, oh, I got to go help him. Like, this is serious. It's like, are they just really good friends? Like, what is the relationship there? I didn't realize that they were so close.
I think they're just friends, but we don't. The closest thing we learned about Ash was Ash's brother, but other than that, because I don't even remember what happened with Marshawn Lynch. Did he even read his stuff?
I thought he was an AI, for the longest time. I didn't think he was like an actual person. So I don't even know. I feel like I need to go back and rewatch this whole season just to see if it all fits, Well,
they were in the first episode that really talked about them, and then Mother of Exiles.
Yeah.
But I mean, you didn't get any character development out of these characters this season outside of Dolores.
Yeah, right, for sure. And just comparing them to like other side characters in past seasons, like Lawrence, like Teddy, like Clementine, and like other people like that, like even they had enough development to the point where it's like, okay, I get it. I felt like they were just missing that little extra added piece that literally everyone else had,
You could tell they put them in for the star factor instead of like, okay, so yeah, they're stars, but let's make us care about these characters in the show.
Yeah, no, for sure. So from there, obviously Caleb gets in the helicopter and he heads to Insight. And then basically this is where the whole like Maeve discovering what's going on with Sirach and everything happens. So once Caleb gets to Insight, Sirach tells him, oh, Dolores was using you because if you look at what this plan actually does, it wipes out humanity. And so this is obviously Sirach's sort of like interpretation of what's going to happen, because that's what the program does, is it destroys Rehoboam. So it basically continues the Earth on the trajectory that it was headed on. So it's like people are gonna die, the world is gonna have to like start over and whatnot. In Sirach's mind, this is the exact thing we were trying to prevent.
Right.
So, and that's when Caleb's like feels a little betrayed by Dolores, because Sirach is telling him, oh, she just wanted you because of your violent, unstable tendencies. Obviously, we find out later on that's not the case, but that's where we're at right now in the episode. And then from there, it does that weird cut to like Maeve having the conversation with Sirach, where we find out he's being controlled by Rehoboam. And then
his question, why didn't she hear that before though?
Yeah, that's
the first time you've heard this.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it could have been the fact that he was a hologram all these times, but I don't know. There's a lot of just like weird sort of like place. The structure of this episode was not great. It was a little messy. But then from there, Maeve goes to Dolores because she obviously is going to try and get this thing out of her head. And then she enters the simulation with Dolores. And this is hands down, at least in my opinion, I think this is where the episode is saved. This entire interaction between Dolores and Maeve is exactly what I've wanted from the entire season.
But that's why it works. because
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like this entire time, we just wanted them to work together to understand one another. They're stronger together than like working on these opposing sides, which is ridiculous for the entire season that it lasted.
Yeah, I know. It was like, what did it really need to take 8 episodes to get to that point? Yeah. But anyway, so they go into the simulation, they're in Westworld, and then Dolores is talking to her about the fact that it's like, listen, like they might not deserve our empathy or whatever, or to live or whatever, but that doesn't mean we should destroy them.
Right.
And then Dolores is basically talking about how like the good elements of humanity are placed inside us, like our willingness to love, our attachment, whatever, it makes us strong. And then she says, we I forget kind of like the order of things that happens, but the gist of it is, it was like the hosts had to destroy the world they lived in for them to get free will. And so that was Dolores's ultimate goal. And she's saying, and her last words are basically like, I choose to see the beauty in everything. And like, while my actions feel like they were a little questionable, I was doing it ultimately to start a new world for all of us. And then that's also where she's like, Maeve, you need to pick a side. You either need to be against this or you need to join us. And she's basically convinces her to join their cause and like start anew and whatnot. So I want to ask you about this little interaction, because I think you were kind of mixed on it, and I totally understand why, but yeah, just what did you kind of make of this whole thing?
I thought it was cool because it's what we have been waiting on, but then I was just like, why did they even have to fight this long if all Maeve had to do was get inside of Dolores' head? I don't understand. Like,
I know.
So it's like it's one of those things where like, yeah, it was like, yes, this is the moment we've all been waiting for.
Yeah.
But then once that moment happens and you see that they're just like friends and she like chooses to join her side, you're just like, man, why did it take you guys a whole 8 episodes to have this moment? You could have saved all of us just by having this conversation.
I know, it's one of those things where it's like all Dolores had to do was just take a second and have a conversation. That's all it took. And Maeve like could have stopped being a slave to whatever the hell Sirach was doing. I mean, I don't know. Again, the structure of this entire season and the way they chose to get to from point A to point B just felt like they took the longest route possible for no reason.
That has nothing to do with where we're going.
Yeah,
let's go to Disneyland real quick, and then we'll get back to actually where we're going.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that whole debate happens, and then Maeve finally has her come to Jesus moment, and then that really cool action set piece happens where it's like the lights go out.
Moment. That was well done. That was very well done.
That was excellent. I really did like that, and I agree with you when you said earlier that felt like a return for Maeve, which it's actually happening in the episode, but then also it was just nice to see that again. So, and then also that's when Caleb realizes that Dolores didn't choose him because of his violent tendencies. She chose him because of his he made a moral choice because of his ability to make decisions. Yeah, and that's when we get the flashback to Caleb and the rest of his military troop at Park 5, and the rest of them are like trying to take advantage of some of the female hosts, and then Caleb's like, hey, listen guys, we're not these rich assholes who do this. Let's not do this. It's not right. And then Dolores, all those years ago, sees this and she's like, he made a moral choice to save us and whatnot. It's like, I'm going to remember this for when I choose to destroy everything. Yeah, for when I decide to kill everyone.
Say, Caleb, you raggedy dog. I know you did not do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. He's not trash.
Yeah, he's not trash. It's good. So then we get that, and so then Maeve and Caleb are together on a team. Sirach has like his little last villain speech, and he's like, "What are you doing? You're gonna destroy everything." Blah 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 blah. but they don't kill him. That's the big takeaway here. Sirach is not dead, so we could definitely see Vincent Cassel pop up in next season or something like that. What exactly they would do with him, I have no idea. But
William's still out here being raggedy, so I mean,
yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. William, oh god, we haven't even gotten to William yet, and that's a whole other
or Bernard.
But basically the way this whole thing wraps up is, so Caleb and Maeve go out and they see this city exploding on fire, and they're like, in this world you can be whoever the fuck you want. And that was a great Maeve line. And then the episode sort of ends there, and that kind of like leaves the door open for season 4. We are essentially in another version of the Wild West, and your choices are going to affect the person that you are. And so it's like the real world has become another version of this park.
Do you think Dolores is actually dead?
Do I think who?
Dolores.
Oh, right. I completely skipped over that part where Dolores dies.
Yes, Dolores. We got erased. We talked.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you gotta upload it into.
Yeah, she got uploaded into the thing, so she's dead. I think from a physical standpoint, probably. Like I've been sort of predicting for the last couple episodes, I feel like she uploaded her consciousness into this, cloud or whatever, this AI sort of thing. And while Rehoboam is shut down, there might be another way for her to come back. Because the big thing they were sort of hammering down in this episode, and this kind of ties into Bernard, was that like people are only dead if you like refuse to like let go of their memories. It's like your memories of that person that keep them alive, which is thematically where Bernard's arc kind of ties into this. And so, yeah, I could see Caleb bringing back Dolores in some way, shape, or form, or even Bernard doing that. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I kind of like this as the send off to Dolores, because it's like this entire season, and really a lot of season 2, she's been the villain. She's been the antagonist. It's like we have these moments where we're like, okay, I see what you're doing. But then she goes and she does stuff, and like we're like, oh, she's just out of her mind. She just wants to kill people because she wants to get revenge on this. This is the first episode where we're like, oh, we finally get what she's doing. And she's like, listen, I'm not trying to kill all you people. I'm trying to save you. So I like that the way they chose to close out her character. It feels like a very nice full circle to me. I don't know. What did you think?
No, I think it's fine. I think it's time for a new chapter to start. I think she's been hinting it to us the whole time. Like, she knew she was never going to survive this, that she would never be able to see the new world that she fought so hard to help build, and that Caleb will be that person to take the torch and really be the center, really, of Westworld. Like, he will be the center of all the future episodes. So I think it was a good send off, and I like how she said that at the beginning, I'm going to choose the role I'm going to play, and I'm going to write my own end. And she actually got to do that finally. So I think that was a great send off to who Dolores was, and her goal was no longer to play the roles that they intended for her to play anymore. So I'm okay with it. How do I feel about Caleb being the center of Westworld? I don't know, but those are the parts that dealt to us.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. What I do like is that the focus going forward, I think, is going to be on Maeve, Caleb, Bernard, and Hale. Well, and I guess and William to an extent, which I'm done with him. But like the other 4, I really like the 4 that they're gonna have as the main focus going forward, because those 4 have always sort of like those 4 have really become my favorite character. Like Caleb especially just made such an amazing entrance this season, and I know a lot of it is because we all like Aaron Paul, but I thought Aaron Paul did an excellent job of bringing this character to life. And like when it's all said and done, Caleb is someone that we can root for, and so I'm excited to see where they go.
Confidence. I think that's when I will truly. Because right now, Caleb still doesn't know who he is. I mean, he doesn't. Even with the bits and pieces that has been fed to him either through Rehoboam or through Dolores, he still doesn't know who he is as a person. I think that once he finds his own identity, and once he fully accepts the role that he has to play, I think that he will be an even more enjoyable, than what we've already have been used to seeing him. He will be more enjoyable as a character to watch on screen. I
totally agree with you, which I think is why that gets me excited for season 4, because it's like he has he basically has a clean slate to become whoever he wants to be. Like, he's been fed his backstory. He knows who he was, but now, given the fact that the whole system blew up, he can choose to be whoever he wants to be, basically, going off of Maeve's final line there. Yeah, any final thoughts on the main storyline for this episode, the Dolores, Caleb, Maeve, Hale, Sirach stuff?
Man, that was a lot of people we just talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we still forgot about Bernard. Why? I forgot about Bernard the entire episode.
I know.
Still back on screen.
Yeah. So let's bring it all back in. Let's start talking about Bernard. It's not very long. So we start back out with William, Bernard, and Stubbs. William, of course, is like on his self-righteous crusade, and he starts firing shots at Bernard and Stubbs and whatnot. And then Bernard flips a switch, and he turns into like killer mode.
Yes, Bernard.
We still have no idea what the switch is. No. What, like, how it came to, like, what, and I guess in the context of things, it really doesn't matter. But it's like, what? I don't know. It's infuriating. But anyway, so then Lawrence, old friend of his, not really an old friend of his, but like, familiar face from the park. He comes, but it's like the Dolores copy, obviously, and he gives Bernard something to help him on his journey. It's the yes, yeah, thank you. It's the fucking Cyclops visor that he's gonna put on at the end of this episode. And that he still has a part to play in Dolores's game. So then from there, Bernard is led to Arnold's family, which is interesting. But
we all thought it was Dolores.
Yeah, like that was the whole point. Like he thought that he was heading on his way to meet Dolores and have a confrontation there. But ultimately, Dolores leads him to Arnold's family. And this is, first of all, this is a beautiful, beautiful scene. Incredibly well acted. Every time Jeffrey Wright gets like a scene like this, he shows why he's probably one of the best actors in the show. But again, like it's beautiful. He gets to make amends with Arnold's wife. They get to talk about Charlie, and his wife basically tells him, hey, I've never been a big believer in just like forgetting about people and letting things go. I think it's a disservice to them to do that. You keep them alive through memory, which is a big thematic thing, as I already mentioned. Great scene. Why was it in this episode? Like, what was the purpose? It felt like it derailed everything that was sort of going on. It felt like it should have been in an episode prior to this,
Well, any other episode that actually would have gave Bernard more of a storyline would have been helpful until the finale. I think that it was a way of Bernard relinquishing. And I mean, I think it ties in even like, let's say with the little clicker, because Bernard always tries to relinquish like his humanity. It's like it's kind of like the same thing that Dolores was going through, because he is Bernard, but he's still Arnold at the same time. Like he has these two lives inside of him that he really hasn't been able to reconcile the Arnold portion of it. And I think that with his closure to that side of him, the pain that he has, or the memories and the thoughts that he has of this other person's life. And so I think that the whole conversation between him and Arnold's wife was for him to finally let go and really step into whatever role. And I think Dolores knew that he needed to reconcile his past before help them with building a new world.
See, that's an excellent point. And I completely agree with it.
They could have just said that. I mean, no,
it didn't. Yeah.
And I love Gina Torres. She's great.
Yeah. She's excellent. But this episode, it just really should have been earlier in the season. Like we should have discovered Bernard's purpose earlier on in this season, because it just feels like he's hanging out in limbo until this moment. Well, I mean, she trusted Bernard with the key because she knew that he, like, because those two are like so connected, she knew that he was going to be the only one to be able to do the right thing. Because Dolores even knew in the back of her mind, she was like, well,
I don't trust myself.
I don't trust myself. I might use this for the wrong purposes. So I think that's ultimately why. And so now Bernard, whatever he's doing with this visor thing, whatever he looked at, whatever happened, he's going to be a big player in season 4, thankfully, because I mean, I don't know if that's the case because I thought he was going to be a big player in this season, but he wasn't.
Loved it.
But
I feel like the Westworld panel at Comic-Con.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
I feel like now all of this makes sense. Like why everything was just so vague at the Comic-Con panel. I was like, some don't feel right, but now I feel as though this all makes sense.
Yeah, I know. It does feel like I trust they have a roadmap. It just doesn't feel like they know every detail of where they're going, which I guess is fine, but it does feel like they're sort of making it up as they go along at this point. I don't know. It's a little frustrating, but yeah, basically from there, Bernard gets the key. After that, it'll give him the answer of what comes next after the end of the world. And so like he has a nice little final interaction with Stubbs, who is dying in a bathtub
because he left my man there.
I know. He just leaves him there. Leaves him hanging.
I'll be right back. Be back.
Yeah.
How many years?
We have no idea.
From him at the beginning of the season, my man was just sitting here dead for like years for you to come back and get him.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he'll resurrect Stubbs in season 4. I have no idea. But he better. I know. I'm gonna miss Luke Hemsworth. But yeah, and then from there, in the post-credit scene we get, Bernard waking up after like the whatever, like a century of sleep or whatever, and he's gonna save the world now. So
and
I don't know. Did you have any final thoughts on Bernard's arc for this season?
No, I'm just more concerned about Stubbs in the bathtub.
I'm concerned about Stubbs in the bathtub.
Character, I mean, nothing really happened to have a thought. Like
I know
it's happened with his character this entire season, except as Bernard. That's it.
Yeah. Listen, as disappointing as Bernard was this season, we now arrive at the character who literally has no purpose anymore, has overstayed his welcome, and I'm just done with him. I'm done with him. And it kills me because I love Ed Harris and I love William when he's used correctly, but he's just a character that is just running in circles now, and he's just become annoying. It's every time they cut to him, I'm like, well, this isn't interesting anymore. We've already explored everything we can with him. And truthfully, William should have died in season 2, and they should have had this host version of him, with Hale be the thing. Yeah, they shouldn't have even had William in this season. They should have just saved that for season 4. The big reveal at the end of this season should be that Hale was making another version of William, and then he makes his big reveal, and then that ties into the post-credit scene of season 2. I still think the post-credit scene in this ties into the post-credit season of season 2, but like,
what was the post-credit scene again?
With William, so the real William basically goes trying to kill Hale, and then
season 2.
Oh, it's William in this chamber, basically going through the same tests that James Delos did when they were trying to keep him immortal. Yeah. So like, I think that William that was in the chamber at the end of season 2 is the William that comes out in this post-credit scene and kills the real William.
I do want to say I did find it interesting when Maeve and Dolores were having a discussion. She was like, "Oh, that poor thing. Are you going to turn him into William too?" I was like, "Oh, tell her how it really is." Because I mean, Dolores really is what led to the destruction of William, even though it was already there before him meeting her. But that whole cat and mouse game between them, it really just led to his full destruction to the dark side. See how I put the Star Wars reference, like dark side?
You needed that. Yeah. Listen, I'm happy you found a way to work it in there. But here's the thing. Is William really dead? The real William. Do you think the real William is
the real William was dead before we even got to this version of William? So I thought he did it. I was like, how is he still alive? I thought he died.
Yeah, that's fair. I
think in Westworld, you never know who's dead, who's not. Like, it's all confusing. Who's a
yeah.
Like,
I don't. Listen, we didn't see him actually die.
I saw blood outside of his throat, though. Like,
right,
guts.
but he's William, and he can survive anything. So I think what's going to happen is he's going to survive, and he's going to have to literally face the evil version of himself, and that'll be the I don't know. They'll conclude his arc somehow that way. He's ultimately going to destroy himself in order to find peace, and that's just a very literal way of doing it. If he is dead, then so be it. I don't know. Maybe this will be interesting because the William that is now walking around is only like he is only the evil version that Dolores remembers him as from the park. Like, it doesn't have any of the humanity of this other William. So I don't know, but I mean, quite frankly, I'm just kind of like over it. Like, the guy he was really interesting for the first 2 seasons, but like, I feel like they're just really stretching his arc out longer than it needs to be, you know?
Yeah, I think that, like, even when he dies, it was just like, oh, okay, well, I think it was poetic, him being killed by another version of himself, because he really been his own destruction as a character. But I was just like, okay, great. Finally.
Yeah.
Why did it take this long to do this? But I'm more interested to see what Charlotte's plans are. It looks like she wants to build an army of hosts for her own, and we don't know if they built more hosts. Maybe they just got.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, this entire season though, Dolores was like collecting blood from like various people, and so like I assume that because Hale was in, or Dolores, because she was in on what was going on, she's going to take that and then, build her own army, and then she's going to try and wipe out humanity or anyone who stands in her way.
I want to remind me like how you guys are.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like the real Dolores was like, listen, a lot of these people suck, but there is beauty in who they are, and so we're going to try and find a way to live with them. And so it's like Hale has now become the evil Dolores, which feels like the show is going in cycles in some regards, because like that's basically what Dolores was at the beginning of the season, or so we thought. And then I
have to deal with the fallout of her her actions.
Yeah, it's just it's an endless cycle, and I think that was the biggest thing to me. Is it feels like, okay, now we're starting to repeat some things, and it feels like we're just spinning our wheels a little bit. So I don't know.
I mean, I think we've come back to where we were at the beginning of season 2. Because at the end of the day, now the entire world has been woken up. Everyone is woke up. Yeah. Everyone knows the world that they live in today. And so I think now with this season, for season 4, it's the humans who are learning to come to the grips, learning how to come to the realization that they have never had free will, that every choice that they've ever made has been predetermined. So now that we know that, how do we actually proceed knowing that we have free will now? And I think that this is just like, okay, episode 1 was the host figuring out that they didn't have free will. And then episode 2 was the hosts were woke now, so they wanted to take that back. And now it's reverted back to season 3. Humans realized that their choices weren't real, and now it's time for the humans to revolt and fight back.
Yeah. And I mean, that it makes sense. But like at the same time, again, it's just the same sort of cycle, but on a larger scale. And so I just hope going forward they can do that
for a purpose. You just want to know we're not wasting our time, and that there is a real vision behind this, and there is still like this point that you're trying to convey. But I think now we can't really see what that is, because we really haven't learned more about any of these characters with the exception of Caleb, but he still doesn't know who he is as a person anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, any final thoughts on the episode? Well, actually, before we give final thoughts on the episode, well, yes, okay, no, we'll do it this way. Final thoughts on the episode, and then final thoughts on the overall season.
They could cut out a strong 15 minutes out of this episode. Strong 15, the episode would have flowed the exact same way. As the season as a whole, I think the first half of the season started off with a bang, And after Mother of Exiles, I don't think
Yep.
it really found
Yep.
that crescendo again. It just, I think Mother of Exiles was like a great episode that you were just like, okay, it's only going to get better from here after we have.
Yeah.
And it was
it felt like the intensity was just like going to ramp up and like we were going to get some like really interesting stuff. And then it just kind of like, it fell into a lull. And I don't know how that happened.
I think they thought genre would be that episode to really up the ante, but it really didn't. Because we didn't learn anything. I think if we would have I think that genre should have been the episode that we actually learned who Caleb was.
Yeah, and they should have used it through the drug. Like they did it.
That's what I thought.
They did like little flashes, but yeah.
I was like, he still don't know anything. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So yeah. I know. I was underwhelmed for the season as a whole. I think it started off really great. Will I keep watching? I will. I will always give Westworld a chance. They have a very talented group of actors. And I think that the storyline and the underarching themes that they kind of put in place, I think that it works very well, especially to what we're dealing with in today's society. And I think that it's an interesting premise. I just think that the execution needs to be tightened up a little bit.
Yeah. And I think going forward, I can't see them doing another 10 episode season anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think episodes are fine. I think they could have done 8 episodes here. When you have a short series, a short episode count, you cannot have fillers. There is no room for filler episodes. Stuff needs to be happening every single week. Something has to be happening. You do not have to do episodes to just waste time for the sake of wasting time.
Yeah. And truthfully, I think if they're going to have a shorter episode count, and they need to, sprinkle in things in these episodes, they maybe consider making them longer, just a little bit. We're not asking, like, the longest episode.
Game of Thrones make theirs longer? Who made their episodes longer?
Game of Thrones made their episodes longer.
Okay. Even though they still didn't give us anything, but still.
Yeah. I feel like for Westworld, the big problem with the show right now, I think, is just the episode structure and the placement, when certain things are revealed. Now, I understand that's like from a larger storytelling context, and maybe that's like they want these things to be revealed at these points, but I think they need to do a better job of sprinkling in details, and maybe like incorporating character arcs into episodes, even if it makes like the episode longer, instead of just like cramming it in at the end.
Episodes. Westworld could definitely be 6 episodes. If you just really focus on, we're going to give you story development, like stuff is going to be happening and progressing every single episode. It could be a shortened season. Like if they need to save money, like that, make it shorter episodes. This season didn't need to be 8 episodes.
No. Yeah, which is I personally think that they could have actually made this season 10, which would have given us like room for a Bernard centric, like solely Bernard centric.
Is that with filler episodes?
No, not with filler episodes. That's with like.
But some of these episodes were filler.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe 8 was better. I don't know. I feel like
genre episode should have never happened. So that should have been episode, and Caleb should have had genre by himself.
Yes, I will agree with you on that. I think genre should have been the episode where Caleb. That's where we find everything out about Caleb. Yeah. Bernard, but I still think Bernard needed an arc, he needed an episode in order for his character to feel like he had a purpose this season, because he didn't. He was just hanging out.
Last week's episode, we didn't learn anything. I mean, we did learn stuff. Well, yeah, you could have did. Actually, I think that you could have did half of the genre episode and half of last week's episode, and that should have been one episode. So that actually could have been episode that could have been episode 6, or after Dolores' Mother of Exiles, you could have did a Bernard episode. Episode 7 could have been Caleb, and then we would have run right into the finale.
Yeah. That's again. This is
hire us. I mean, I'm just saying.
I'm not saying that we have the
more, but I'm just saying, like, if we can do a focus, a class and just get feedback, like, hey, as a viewer, Because I think it's hard too, like when you know the vision and you have the answers in your head already, to actually put that out there. I think I think that might be everyone's frustration with Westworld. Is I think a lot of stuff is assumed that the audience will automatically get or understand.
Right.
And I think if you listen to anyone's biggest every episode, everyone's just like, I am so confused. I am confused every episode. I have no idea what is happening. Like, am I dumb? I question it. I'm like,
no, for sure. I mean, it's a very like complicated and sometimes convoluted show. But when it hits its stride, it's really, really good. It's some of the best television out there, honestly. And you know, it's enhanced by amazing music. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Ramin Djawadi for the music this season. Excellent. It was perfect. It was so good. And they didn't use as many covers this time around, but the covers that they did use, like Wicked Games was amazing. Sweet Child of Mine was great.
So
yeah. It was, again, he always delivers. But the performances, like I thought Tessa Thompson was unbelievable this season. And even Evan Rachel Wood in this final episode.
That was some masterclass acting, right? I thought she was very fantastic. And let me be clear, because I know I always seem like I hate Westworld. I don't. It's just one of those things when you see how talented the cast is, when you see how talented the people behind the scenes, like bringing these stories to life, bringing these episodes to the screen. You just want more. Like, you know that, like, this could be even, like, this is already great, but this could be on some, like, excellence, okay? It could just be excellent television every single week.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's why sometimes I feel as though that Westworld is better suited for me in a binge model than a week-to-week.
Sure. Yeah. And like I flip-flop. Like I know our friend Zach, he says he likes that week in between to think about what's going on. I think Westworld would succeed in a binge model if like you binge it once and then rewatch it again. You know, it's like one of those binge shows where it's like with each
you understand it. I think you will understand it better if you're watching it back to back to back. I think you get the picture. You get the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And then things don't feel like filler episodes because you're going on to the next episode. For me, if I didn't review TV shows, I would definitely not watch Westworld. I would just wait till the whole season ended and binge in one sitting.
Right. For sure. And guys, I think that's going to do it for this, recap, review, explained, breakdown, whatever the hell you want to call it, video on Westworld Season 3, the finale, Episode 8, Crisis of whatever the hell it was called. What was it? Crisis of...
That's a good question.
Do you remember the name of it?
No.
It's I don't know what it's called. Crisis of something. There you go, guys. I'm sure you can tell us what it is. It doesn't matter. But be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions on the finale down in the comments section below. Did you like it? Were you happy with how everything wrapped up? Are you looking forward to season 4? And then also let us know your thoughts and opinions on season 3 as a whole. I know for a lot of people it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, but I'm curious to hear what you all have to say. Thank you, Sharronda, for joining me on this recap show, and actually for all the other recap shows this past season. It's been a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun. I felt like a villain, like on all of these live streams, because I seem to be the only one who didn't like aspects of episodes. But yeah, this is great. And Crisis Theory was the name of the episode.
Crisis Theory. There it is. Yeah, that makes sense.
I really do appreciate. It's been fun chatting with you this season.
Yeah, no, for sure, and we'll definitely have to pick it up again whenever season 4 comes out.
Get Stubbs back is when
we
will have a new season.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on social at PayOrWait, and you can also find me at www.payOrWait.com and youtube.com/PayOrWait.
Perfect. And then as always, guys, you can like this video, share with your Westworld friends, and subscribe to the Film Speak channel for more television recaps and reviews, movie reviews, other sorts of film-centric content. We've got a cool couple video essays in the works that you can look forward to as well. And then lastly, guys, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, that's going to do it for this final episode of Into the Westworld for the season, and we will catch you next time. Take care.